One, men. Men, we must talk about manliness. Manliness is not some machismo bluster. It's not some option. It's a necessity. I need to talk about manliness today. This is some sort of essay I have composed in my head about manliness. 20 years ago, I knew a Turkish couple, very young. They were students of mine. I was teaching in the desert of California. And I don't know, we were talking about manliness, and I was describing a particular type of man in America. And the man is called a man child. He suffers from arrested development. Gee, I wonder where those thoughts came from. So they told me that in Turkey, there's a very specific name for such a man child, and his name is Muganda. And typically he wears a dark blue Adidas sweatsuit, unzipped. You can see his hairy chest, gold medallion. He wears loafers, but his feet don't go completely inside the loafer. He puts his foot on top of it so the heel is just crushing the top because he's too lazy to put his foot completely in the loafer. Lives with his mother. He's about 35 years old. He has no discretion. If he sees a beautiful woman walk by, he'll go like this. You know, he's not particularly savvy socially. And the other thing they told me about Muganda is he'll just be walking the streets and he'll see like these 7-year-old boys playing soccer. You know, oh, soccer! And he'll go in and he'll play and he'll be the champion and he'll be proud of himself that this 35-year-old bully took over a soccer game played by little children. And so I was fascinated by the idea of this creature named Muganda. Why am I fascinated by it? Well, I have to tell you, my brother, who's 49 years old, my father, who's 75 years old, and me, I'm 53 years old. I hate to tell you this, we are the embodiment of Muganda. I think we're hardwired for it to a certain degree. I don't want to talk about hardwiring too much because there is some responsibility we must take in life to grow up and to be mature. I will tell you, my father was born on a farm outside Detroit, Michigan in 1938. He made good money as an engineer. He's a mathematical genius. I do not have his genius for math, or maybe for nothing. Oh, well, what are you going to do? And that little farm boy, that little Muganda inside of him never left him. You know, when he made his money, he was at this country club one time many years ago. You know, these men with old money and their golf attire. And my father, you know, he's at the buffet table for the third time. And he slaps this tall, skinny guy in the back and goes, "Getting full here is a bitch, man." And the guy was terrified of my father. And so one time we're at a restaurant, and my father embarrasses me a lot at restaurants, and the waitress said there were no beer glasses, which is not a good situation for my father, who likes his beer, and he is a military man. He likes things quickly. And so we're sitting there before the meal comes. My dad says, "I need a beer, man." And the waitress says, "I'm sorry, all the beer glasses are dirty." My father takes his water glass, he throws the water into a nearby potted plant, and he goes, here's a beer glass," and he got his beer. More recently, he came down south here in Southern California to visit my wife and me and my two twin daughters. He took me out for my birthday. This would have been about, I don't know, 7 months ago. He takes me to a fancy seafood restaurant in Redondo Beach. And he's drinking his Chardonnay while eating his lobster and crab louie and everything. And he started getting on the discussion of international politics, geopolitics, and we started talking about ISIS, this horrible terrorist group from the Middle East. I'm sure you've heard of them. And out of the blue, as we're talking about ISIS, my father slams his fist on the table in the restaurant. And he goes, "Assholes!" And you know, I was terrified and mortified because everyone in the restaurant's looking at us. And you know, number one, you don't scream that in a restaurant, nice restaurant, not nice restaurant. You just don't do that. Number two, no one heard the context of what he was talking about. And I saw my father's wife, my stepmother, just kind of taking it all in. She's kind of used to being married to a Muganda. She's been married to a Muganda for about over 30 years, so she's pretty much used to it. My brother is also a Muganda. He'll admit it to you. I remember a couple years ago we were going to this family reunion meal out by my father's house, and we're about a half hour away from my father's house. And my brother stops at a Jack in the Box. I go, "What the hell are you doing, man?" He goes, "I'm hungry. I need to eat right now." And he gets this giant cheeseburger, and because he just can't hold his appetite. I'm no one to talk. I too am a Muganda. Yesterday, I was by myself. My girls were at preschool. My wife was teaching. Right over here by the back sliding glass window, which leads to our backyard, I see on the ground a good-sized black widow spider. And I take this glass spray and I spray the spider. And, it looks like it's dead. It curls up. And I know spiders well enough. They fake dead all the time. So I wasn't convinced that it was dead yet. I took some Kleenex, pounced on it, thinking it was now dead. I pick up the Kleenex, and the spider leaps out of the Kleenex and almost bit me. And my wife is very scared of spiders. And you have to realize I live in the suburbs. And by the way, I did eventually kill the spider, squished it up. When you live in the suburbs and you're a man, killing a black widow spider is the equivalent of warding off a saber-toothed tiger from your cave. And so, of course, I was eager to share my masculinity, my man points with my wife. So, my girls get home from preschool. They're home with me for about an hour. We eat our lunch. My wife gets home, and I'm eager to tell her about the black widow spider. But you see, my daughters, they're suffocating my wife with their needs. Julia wants her ladybug costume, and Natalie wants my wife Carrie to print out something from the printer, some kind of a My Little Pony illustration so she can color it. And I'm going, "Carrie, I saved the family from a black widow." And Carrie goes, "What?" "Oh, yeah, I almost got bit by it." And my daughters are screaming, and Carrie goes, "Well, go on. Tell me what happened with the black widow." He goes, "I can't because the girls are interrupting me. I need your full attention. I need your full presence. I need you in the moment." And I eventually did tell her, but this morning Carrie was replaying the event, and she was making me laugh because she did a really good impression of me. And my brother and I were discussing how horrible it is to be a man-child, to be a Muganda, whether it be dealing with black widow spiders or not being able to delay our gratification at fast food restaurants or whatever the case may be. And here's the thing about being a Muganda. It's not good for your marriage. Not a genius thing to say, but I want to make a principle. The higher you are on the Muganda scale, the higher your wife has to be a mommy to clean up your messes. And the higher your wife has to be your mommy, the more conflict there is in the marriage, because you don't want to be treated like you're a little child, and your wife doesn't want to have to be a mommy. And I think, I don't know if I believe in marital counseling. I don't think it works, but I think it just makes people more angry. But I think at the heart of marital conflict is that dynamic. And my brother and I, we can't stand that we can see the Muganda inside of us, the man-child inside of us, and we can see our wives having to play the maternal role. We can't stand that about ourselves. And I would say that perhaps the biggest challenge that a man faces is, not to try to completely eradicate his inner Muganda, but to try to minimize it to some degree. Perhaps that's the biggest struggle of all. And I would like to come up with an essay in the near future about the strategies that one could develop to be less of a man-child. It's not something I glory in. It's not something I embrace and celebrate. I find it embarrassing. Every now and then I see some humor in it, I guess, but it's really not a laughing matter. And I'm going to come up with some strategies for my next vlog, video, YouTube essay. And until then, I am out.